Well, hello again to you all and welcome back to In My Shed with BC. Today we have a little episode with my CMZ 450 shaper. I really can't understand why this is repetitive, but the oil pickup tube seems to get a growth on the end of it. It blocks all oil flow off, especially if you don't use it for 3 or 4 months. So I have a sneaking suspicion it's dissimilar metal creating a galvanic action and changing the oil into a big blob of snot. Not the best of things. This particular side cover has been off three times before. I had another operation inside it. There's a piston oil pump in there that reciprocates at high speed and is currently giving me a little bit of grief. I hate running machines, even simple ones like this, without any oil. So we'll have the cover off shortly and have a look inside. There's a close-up of the old girl and some shaper tools underneath. Here we are on the other side of the shaper for the second annoying problem. The feed wheel or feed shaft or tumbler mechanism or nut tightens up. It's been happening more and more frequently. You take the cover off, the shaft out, and nothing's bound up. I've been unable to solve this with 2 teardowns before, so this time even the feed nut is going to come out. So let's hope I can find something sticking inside. I'm suspecting there's an auto backlash adjustment on the cross slide nut, but we'll find out. Back again later. Having looked down inside its belly, just to the left you can see a copper tube that runs from the oil pump proper down into the oil reservoir or the sump of the machine. And this is the 3rd time it's been out. We'll have a look once she's sitting up on the deck. And just inside there's the pump, but it's a little bit hard to perceive even with the light on it. Nothing too exciting here, just the oil strainer, but you can see the thick sludge formed around the filter. I can't explain it. And there's a little bit of the snot left on the bottom of the screen. Now the oil is a bit gungy down the bottom, and I only think that the atmospheric moisture has got into the oil and I don't run the machine often enough, hot enough to evaporate it out. So I think this time I'll give it an oil change, clean the screen up, and hopefully this will be the end of it. Maybe it'll get a bit more hours as I do some more filming. We'll see it later on. Back again. After a lot of soul searching, I think I found the answer. Hidden in here is a Gibbs strip locking screw, which can appear to be tight, but if not tight enough, it just allows the Gibb to slide and lock up, always in one direction, feeding off to the left, and enough to jam the table up. I think I may have a bit of poo in there, so the Gibb will come out again for a good clean, although it recently had one, but now I think I have an answer. All the rest of the mechanism, down on the floor, is a little worn but appears to be robust and okay. The ratchet housing has a little bit of wear in it, and the teeth from the ratchet have actually chewed into the side of the housing, but I don't think that is the cause. I think it's just a symptom. The extra load on the feed screw was forcing the ratchet a bit sideways and forcing it to chew into the housing. But I think a good deburr and oil up and a bit more attention to the Gibb. I gave it a bit of love last time, but obviously not enough. So this will put the story to bed until I've got it running, and then we'll finish the video. Well, hello to everybody and welcome back to In My Shed. At last the old girl has oil pressure, feeding well, and all of the yuck is out of it, but what a saga. This has kept me busy for hours and hours, and 2 big mistakes for me that we'll talk about later, and once again it's making a bit of noise. Well, we're back again. This time the noise is off so we can see what's happening. Right in the middle of the upper frame is the oil sight glass, and when the machine's running it should be tumbling down and showing that there's a fair bit of pressure. We were getting nothing, and I was a bit surprised because I have cleaned the pickup a couple of times, cleaned up the oil pump, and I couldn't figure what was wrong. So more investigation revealed that the inside of the machine is painted yellow, and all of the yuck that was in it had a yellow skin on top. So there was about 1/4 of an inch of oil on top of 1.5 inches of sludge and evil filth. I think when the machine was transported up from Melbourne, they didn't put a tarp over it and got a very good belly full of water. I hate to say I cleaned it out and spent several hours doing that, made a big mess on the floor. You can all laugh at what Bernie's done in his shed. And the first lot of oil I put back into it was some of the sludge that I drained out instead of clean oil. So it's been cleaned twice. Rather embarrassing to do something like that, but I don't know whether it's age or just too much work, but yeah, that caused me some grief. The other item we had trouble with was the table feed locking up, and that's plagued me ever since I bought this shaper. I've unable to fault find it. This is probably the simplest of all mechanical mechanisms, just an arm fed from the rotating crank down to this ratchet system here. And it just gets tighter and tighter, and in the end you can't move the table. I was blaming the cross-feed nut and all sorts of things, and this is the culprit. That little bastard there, and a bit of swarf up inside the hole. That bush is what pushes on the end of the gib to lock it in position. You adjust it for tension on the other side, and this side you set the stop so it can't be pushed in any further. And it was going home against a bit of rubbish in the slide for the gib before the bush actually met the gib. So as the table moved backwards and forwards, the gib would just tighten up. I think this time I must have had the glasses in the right place on my nose, and bingo, I found what the bloody problem was. So that will go back in with a good tighten, cover on the other side, and I'll run it for about an hour today in case there's any moisture in there. But I'm glad this job has come to a close. It has been brutal on me, bending over with my back. But it's good to have the old machine up and running yet again. I'll bring you over to the bench and show you some of the evil stuff I took out of the machine. And that's the goo oozing out of the sump of my shaper. Probably 100 mils of water and then some very, very thick snot, and that is horrible sludge. It won't even run after having a TIG rod shoved in there. That's the reason why I had gummed up filter. That's a good shot because it shows the yellow paint from inside the machine and the colour of the sludge. Quite a good match, I would think. That's how I got caught. And here's a couple of containers with the sludge that's out at the bottom of the machine. After 2 weeks it's just starting to separate out. The bottom inch or so was as thick as treacle, and it was actually taking the oil from on top of the sludge down around the filter, but the poor old filter won and it didn't get anywhere. Anyway, machine's back and running and I'm happy about that. Another video later today.